Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're embarking on a really heartwarming exploration. We're looking into foster parenting in Germany, but through a very personal lens.
Yeah, through the experiences of Gülin Akdağ, who's a Koryuku Ann, that's Turkish for foster mother.
Exactly. And our main source is her book, Yürekte, Büyüyen, Çocuklar, which translates to Children Growing in the Heart.
Right, and we're also drawing on some of her, reflections and stories she shared online on social media.
What's great is that instead of just a dry rundown of the foster system,
Yeah.
we get this really intimate, personal look, what it's really like to open your home and, well, your heart to kids who need it.
It gives you such a unique vantage point, doesn't it? You really understand the emotional journey, the challenges, the joys, the whole thing.
Totally. So we'll be unpacking, everything from her initial dream of doing this right through to the reality, sometimes beautiful, sometimes kind of chaotic, of raising 3 young foster children.
So think of this as your shortcut, really, to understanding Koryuku Aylık foster care in Germany.
Yeah, what it means, why it's significant, and just the incredible love involved. Okay, let's dive in.
Okay. So the book kicks off with Gülin looking back at where this dream even started.
Right.
And it actually goes way back to when she was a university student in Istanbul.
Ah, okay.
And she talks about this really formative experience, seeing children at what's called an İsirgeme Kurumu, basically a children's home.
In the Eyüp Sultan district, she mentions.
That's the one, and it sounds like it really stuck with her.
Yeah, she describes passing by it often and just feeling this deep empathy, I guess, for the children there.
It wasn't just a fleeting thought either.
No, she says she remembers thinking very clearly, one day, I'm definitely going to take a child from here. Like, a real conviction.
Wow. So it really planted a seed early on.
Seems like it.
But, actually making it happen wasn't straightforward at all. Life took her elsewhere.
To Germany, right, for studies.
Yeah, she went there for studies, met her husband, started her family there. And even though that desire to foster was still strong.
Practicalities got in the way.
Exactly. Things like residency status, visa rules, all tied up with her husband's academic work back then. It meant they just couldn't apply initially.
Ah, okay. So the dream was kind of on hold for a while because of, well, logistics.
Pretty much. But the desire didn't fade.
And then eventually things started to line up.
Yes. She talks about finally being able to complete their application,
Right.
going to the required seminars,
Right.
and then waiting for that crucial home visit.
That sounds nerve-wracking.
I bet. But it seems like it went really well.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, the official who came took one look around and just said something about the real family atmosphere.
Oh, that's lovely.
It really is, isn't it? It says a lot about the kind of environment they'd created. Maybe, it suggests the German system values that warmth, that feeling, perhaps as much as ticking boxes.
That's a really interesting point. It's not just about the paperwork.
Seems not. And soon after that visit, their daughter Layla, who was apparently really excited about the whole idea, immediately asked, "So, when's my sibling coming?"
Kids have no filter. What did the officials say?
Well, grounded her a bit in reality, explaining they help kids when they're in need, so they'd be contacted when there was a child needing them, no promises on timing.
Right, makes sense. You can't just order up a child.
Exactly, which makes what happened next kind of surprising.
Oh,
Just a week after that visit, they get another call asking to meet again.
okay.
Now remember, in their application, they'd sort of indicated a preference.
Right, for an older girl, wasn't it, like 5 to 7?
Yeah, someone to be a companion for Layla. That was the picture they had.
But life had other plans.
You could say that. They were told about a little girl, just 15 months old, who needed placement regently, and they were asked, would they consider her?
Wow, that's a big difference from 5 or 7. What was Gulen's first reaction?
Huh. It was incredibly human. She immediately asked, is she still in diapers?
No. Oh, brilliant. So relatable. The practicalities hit straight away.
Totally. Forget the idealized vision for a second. It's like, okay, toilet training.
Been there.
Exactly. It just shows the real, everyday stuff you think about.
Did they feel pressured?
No, she says the officials sensed her, maybe slight hesitation, and gave them time. No rush.
Okay.
But then, this really lovely moment happened. While they were thinking it over, Gülin asked her husband about the little girl's name. And this is where it gets quite amazing, really. The name was Samish.
Samish. Okay.
And it means friend of the night.
Oh, wow.
And get this, their own daughter's name, Layla, also has a connection to night in some interpretations.
No way.
Yeah. So finding this out, this sort of unexpected link between the names, It just clicked for them.
Like a sign.
Kind of felt that way, yeah. A friend of the night for their night's daughter. It just sealed the deal emotionally.
That's incredible. It shows how those little personal connections can be so powerful, even in what seems like a formal process.
Absolutely. It really shaped things for them.
So they knew they had to meet her.
Definitely. And when they did meet Samis, Gülin says her first thought was, wow, she looks like one of us. Like an instant feeling of belonging.
That's powerful.
So the very next day, they said yes. They were ready to become Samis Koruyuku Aile.
Amazing. And how did the actual move happen? Was it just, boom, she's home?
No, the German system seems quite careful about that. There was this gradual transition period, about 2 months.
Okay.
And it involved what they call pedagogical supervision, basically professional support.
Ah, so help to make it smooth for everyone.
Exactly. It gave Samis and the family time to, get used to each other, play together, start building those bonds, but with guidance there if needed.
That sounds really sensible. I highlight something else she mentions, doesn't it? These Bereitschafts family.
Yes. The temporary readiness families, they play such a crucial role.
Explain that a bit more.
Well, these are families trained to provide immediate short-term care. So when a child needs help right now, they step in until a longer-term foster family, like Gülin's, can be found.
So like first responders in the care system?
Kind of, yeah. And Gülin expresses so much respect for them. She recognizes how tough their job often is.
Taking in kids who might be quite traumatized.
Exactly. Providing that initial comfort and stability during a really scary time for a child. She even sort of suggests their role might be even more demanding sometimes, dealing with that immediate crisis.
Right, I can see that. Okay, so after the transition, Samis comes home properly. They're a family of 4. How did that go initially?
Well, Gülin is really honest. It wasn't all smooth sailing right away.
Understandably.
Samish was, as you might expect, very clingy at first, very anxious around strangers. Even if Gülin was gone for just a short time, it could lead to days where Samish just wouldn't let go, had trouble sleeping alone.
That must have been hard. It really shows how important patience and just constant reassurance are, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Right.
Building that trust back up. Gülin mentions it took about 10 months, maybe, for Samis to really settle.
10 months. Wow.
Yeah, for her to feel properly secure, to stop being so afraid of being left or taken away again.
But eventually she did feel secure.
Oh, yes. She started going to bed on her own, knowing this was her home, her things.
That's lovely.
Yeah, she even became quite protective of their home, apparently didn't like sharing it with visitors for a while.
Huh. A sign of feeling settled, I guess.
Definitely. That secure attachment was forming.
And what about her older sister, Layla? How did that dynamic work out?
Well, initially they shared a room, but that proved a bit tricky.
Oh.
Samis got really attached to Layla at bedtime, often needed her there to fall asleep.
Sweet. But maybe tricky for Layla.
Exactly. Layla, being older, wanted her own routine, maybe stay up a bit later reading or whatever.
Sure.
But Gülin says, even if Layla grumbled sometimes, you could tell she was actually really happy to have Samis there.
A proper sister relationship forming.
Yeah, complete with the usual sibling stuff.
Like arguments.
Oh, yeah. Squabbles, even a bit of biting, apparently.
Oh, dear. Standard toddler behavior, though. How did Gülin handle that?
Really cleverly, I thought. She'd tell Layla, look, Samis is learning everything from you.
Appealing to the older sibling role model thing.
Exactly. Encouraging her to teach Samis all the good stuff.
Did it work?
Well, Layla's response was apparently hilarious. She said something like, well, Mom, I've learned some things from her, too, like pushing and hair pulling.
Huh. Kids are brutally honest. It shows that realistic give and take, doesn't it?
It really does. And Layla sounds quite sensitive anyway. Gülin mentioned she found kindergarten overwhelming at first, with all the noise and crying.
So Samis arriving was another big adjustment for her.
Definitely. But ultimately, a really strong bond grew. Gülin says when she'd pick Samish up from daycare, the first thing Samish would ask was about Layla, and vice versa.
That's lovely. And they had little nicknames for the family roles, too.
Yeah, Mom was apparently boss.
Huh. Sounds about right.
And Dad was the fun one, the confidant for secret treats.
Classic dad role. It paints a picture of a really warm, playful home.
Totally. Which brings us nicely to, what exactly is Koruyuku Aylık, foster care in Germany?
Right. Let's unpack that definition.
Gülin puts it clearly. It's about voluntarily opening your home and your heart to a child in need, providing care, acting as a parent, but without legal adoption.
And that difference from adoption is crucial, isn't it?
Absolutely key. The state keeps legal guardianship.
Right.
And the placement isn't always forever. It could be short-term, like a crisis intervention,
Curl long-term?
or long-term, potentially right up until a child turns 18.
And there's ongoing work with the authorities.
Yes, collaboration with the Jugendamt, that's the child protection agency in Germany, is essential. They're overseeing things.
Got it. And Gulin's own reasons for doing this.
She talks about this deep desire to just do good, to help people who need it. She sees it as a kind of social responsibility.
A way to make a positive difference.
Exactly. Less about fulfilling a personal need, perhaps, and more about contributing something.
And the process to become a foster parent sounds pretty rigorous.
It does. Health reports, checking your finances aren't precarious, criminal record checks, submitting a CV, application forms, and importantly, a letter explaining why you want to do it.
So they really want to understand your motivations. Makes sense.
Yeah, they take it very seriously. It's all about ensuring the child's safety and well-being.
And what about preparing existing children like Layla? That must be a big part of it.
Hugely important. Gülin stresses how vital it is to talk to them beforehand.
About what specifically?
About how parental attention might need to be shared, potential jealousies.
Sure.
And also managing expectations about how long the foster child might stay, explaining that it might be temporary.
That's a tough conversation to have, the temporary part.
Yeah.
How did they explain that to Layla?
They use an analogy, apparently. Like, imagine if mommy or daddy were unwell and couldn't look after you for a bit and you had to stay with someone else.
Relating it to their own potential experience.
Yeah, explaining that sometimes a child's birth parents are going through difficulties and need time to get things sorted.
It's such a delicate balance, isn't it? Creating love and stability, but knowing reunification might happen.
It really is. And Gulin's attitude towards that possibility is, well, quite remarkable.
How so?
She really focuses on the value of the time they do have together, the positive impact they can make, the growth they see in the child, the love shared. That's what matters, regardless of the outcome.
So not seeing it as a loss if the child returns.
Not at all. She even jokes, saying they just add the experience to their life's earnings and move on. But she does make a practical point, too.
Which is?
That if your main goal is adoption, fostering might not be the most direct route. Adoption can often be a longer, maybe more complex process because fewer children are legally available for adoption compared to those needing foster care.
Right, that's an important distinction for people considering it. Okay, so they'd settled into life as a family of 4, but then things changed again.
Dramatically. Another call came. An opportunity to take in another child.
Okay.
Which turned out to be 2 children. Twins.
Twins, wow. How old were they?
22 months old. Ami and Hakuki.
Goodness. So suddenly they went from 1 toddler to 3 kids under 3.
Exactly. Gülin admits she was initially in shock, like, how on earth are we going to manage this?
I don't blame her. That's a massive shift.
Huge. And she noticed the twins had quite different personalities right away.
Oh, yeah.
Ami was apparently more cautious, needed time to warm up in new situations. Haki was more carefree, adventurous from the start.
Little individuals already.
Yeah.
And what about Samis? How does she react to no longer being the baby?
That was interesting. Gülin describes Samis, who is about 3 then, as seeming a bit troubled by it.
Maybe thrown off balance.
Yeah, like maybe instinctively trying to cling on to her position as the youngest. A bit unsettled by the dynamic shift.
Whereas the twins had each other.
Exactly. They seem to handle the transition maybe a bit more easily because they came as a pair.
Any funny early stories about them?
Oh, yes. Gülin mentions their hilarious nightly conversations, just babbling away to each other in toddler speak across their cribs.
Oh.
And Ami apparently had a habit of sleepwalking, sometimes ending up in Sami's bed.
Oh, my goodness. Must have been a surprise for Samish.
I imagine so. These little anecdotes just make it so real, don't they?
They really do. You get a picture of the everyday life.
And she talks about the sibling dynamics developing Ami, often being protective of Hachieki, the constant tattling, but also fiercely defending each other against outsiders. Typical sibling stuff.
Totally. Mobilizing 3 little ones must have been an operation, though.
Oh, she definitely touches on the challenges of just getting out the door.
I bet. So the book and her posts also seem to address questions people often ask her.
Yeah, she tackles some common ones head on, like the specifics of the process in Germany.
Right, we touched on that. Health checks, finances, background checks, seminars.
Exactly. She reiterates those points, adding that the details might vary a bit depending on whether you're in a big city or a smaller town.
And the big one, the child potentially going back to their biological family.
Yes, she revisits that. Understandably, it's a huge concern for potential foster parents.
And her take is still that it's always a possibility.
Yes, she's very honest about that. That's the nature of foster care. It's meant to support, often temporary.
But it's not like they can just be taken aback on a whim.
No, she clarifies that. It's not usually a quick or arbitrary thing. The child's overall well-being is paramount, and decisions are made carefully, involving the Jugendamt and professionals.
Okay. And what about loving a child who isn't biologically yours? Some people struggle with that idea.
She addresses this really beautifully, I think. She draws a distinction from, say, step-parenting, where sometimes complex loyalties or jealousies can arise.
How so?
With foster children, she emphasizes their complete innocence in the situation. They just need love and care, and she finds it impossible not to love them deeply, just like her biological child.
The connection just grows naturally.
Organically, yes. Through all the daily care, the cuddles, the shared life, she makes a powerful point, having already made big life changes, like moving country to serve others. How could she possibly treat these vulnerable kids with anything less than total love?
That's a strong perspective. She also touches on people struggling with infertility, doesn't she?
She does, with real empathy, suggesting that maybe fostering could be a different but equally fulfilling path to parenthood for some.
And emphasizing that being a mother or father goes way beyond biology.
Absolutely, that's a core message.
She also gets into the religious or cultural aspect,
Yes, thoughtfully, particularly the concept of marmiyet.
which relates to privacy and boundaries as kids get older.
Exactly. Especially between opposite genders within the Islamic tradition. She mentions potential ways people address this, like creating milk kinship, sut akrabalu.
Through breastfeeding or providing expressed milk.
Yes, a practice that establishes a type of familial tie in Islamic culture.
Wow. She even looked into induced lactation herself.
She did. For adoptive mothers, it just shows the lengths people go to create those deep, nurturing bonds.
And throughout all this, the importance of family support really comes through.
Oh, massively. She constantly highlights how vital her husband's and wider family support has been. You get the sense they couldn't do it without that network.
And she doesn't shy away from the tough realities either. Sleepless nights, the mess.
Not at all. Total honesty there. The constant state of, let's say, lived-in chaos that comes with young kids.
Uh-huh. Been there. Any specific examples?
Oh, yeah. The funny story about their fire extinguisher method for fevers?
Which was?
Skin-to-skin contact, a natural way to help regulate temperature.
Ah, clever. And practical.
And little details like how the fancy guest pan just became the everyday pan because they were cooking so much more for the bigger family.
Huh. That's such a relatable detail. It shows how life just shifts.
Exactly. But despite all the chaos, the overwhelming feeling is just love
Yeah.
and fulfillment.
Yeah, that comes across so strongly.
She talks about the pure joy of watching the sibling bonds grow, how protective they become of each other.
Even pets get involved.
Oh, yeah. Their cat, Amy, is part of the family dynamic, and the kids interacting gently with her. It adds to that picture of a normal, loving home.
Simple things, like hide and seek.
Become moments of pure joy, she says. And holidays take on new meaning, creating their own traditions as a foster family.
It sounds like they've built something really special. Did she talk about the relationships with the children's biological parents?
She touches on it, acknowledging those dynamics can be complex and varied. She even hints that sometimes, over time, it can evolve into a kind of larger, interconnected family, in a way.
It's interesting. And always hearing the word "and mother."
Yes, she mentions that. Just the constant sound of it in her daily life, a powerful reminder of the role she plays for these children.
And you see the kids' personalities developing through her stories.
Definitely. Through the funny teaching moments, the sibling interactions, you see them growing, learning about things like sharing, ownership, becoming their own little people.
It's been fascinating getting this insight. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Gülin Akdağ's world, what are the main things you think our listeners should take away?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just how profound Koruyucuculuk is. It's clearly, incredibly rewarding, but also really, really demanding.
Oh, huge commitment.
Huge. But it offers this absolutely vital lifeline, love, stability, opportunity to kids who desperately need it. And it really makes you think differently about what family means, doesn't it?
It really does. It highlights the power of compassion.
Totally.
So hopefully you listening now have a much richer picture of foster care in Germany, not just the rules and regs, but the real human emotional side of it.
Yeah, you've gotten insights into the logistics, the social aspects, but mostly that deep emotional core of caring for these children.
Which leads us to a final thought to leave you with.
Considering the incredible love, the dedication, the resilience we've heard about. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
What are our broader responsibilities as a society towards vulnerable children?
Exactly. How can we all contribute, even if we don't become foster parents ourselves? How can individual actions help ensure more kids get that chance to grow up feeling loved and secure?
Something definitely worth thinking about.